Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Jerry Cooey.
I am Deborah Nelson. Thank you for joining us.
And we're here once again at the beautiful plush studio of Santa Rosa Week TV. And I just want to remind you, we were the news media that brought to you that Jeff Miller gave authority for U.S. troops to come to your house and drag you out forever. And we also brought to you the news that Jeff Miller fully supports bestiality. And you remember that when you're looking for a news station to watch.
And I'll just mention that he has never stated that he supports bestiality.
And I will mention again
Unfortunately, I have to mention that again.
He voted for the Defense Authorization Bill, i.e. he voted in favor of it, i.e. in the bill was the freedom of bestiality, i.e. Jeff Miller voted for and is in favor of bestiality. I don't care what my tree-hugging partner has to say.
And reaffirm the police can come to your house and drag you off in the middle
And
of
he,
the night,
and yes, your congressman. Don't forget this, folks. This is important stuff. You know, this is important. Jeff Miller wraps the flag around himself. He stands in the courtyard and portrays himself as a great American while he authorizes the military to drag you out in the middle of the night, and he says it's okay for soldiers to do weird things to animals.
Well, and he's been in the Congress a long time now. We've never seen any hint of his interest in repealing the Patriot Act, which is where a lot of this stuff is located.
Exactly. You know, and look, you know, folks, we've had several we've had several unsuccessful candidates against Jeff Miller. Should anyone want to make a startup of one of these super PACs and pay the qualifying fee, I'm your man. I will tell you this: Jeff Miller will not hide from me. I will follow Jeff Miller around, and he will answer to all of this foolishness that he is voting for and all the games that he plays. So if anybody wants to start a super PAC, you know, I'm your man. I'm not bashful. You don't think I'm bashful, do you?
No, well, occasionally on the show we have those long lulls of silence when you have something to say.
I'm not bashful, folks. Jeff Miller needs to go. Should have been gone a long time ago. Somebody needs to step up to the plate, and the way to defeat him, folks, look, he voted for bestiality, and he voted for you being drug out of your house, and most importantly, he voted to increase the debt ceiling. Now, you tell me where there's a good American mixed up in that. I don't believe there is. Jeff Miller needs to go.
Thank you for sharing.
That's my humble opinion. He does need to go. He needs somebody like me chasing him around with a video camera in his hand, challenging him on all these foolish things. Speaking of stuff that comes out of Jeff Miller's mouth.
Yes.
This stuff is so far detached from each other, I can't even grasp it myself. So I'm going to let Deborah try to explain this. It's in the Pensacola News Journal. Comments by Jeff Miller.
This is... He's jumping on the birth control. All of a sudden, we want to get rid of birth control bandwagon, and I don't know who he thinks he's appealing to. I mean, this is, you know, it's not the Taliban. This is not Taliban country. You know, Republicans use it too. It's ridiculous. Right. But he's now put out some statement that he's concerned that birth control, if it's required to be paid for by insurance, there's this long, convoluted path where homeless veterans are going to suffer from birth control being
because
available.
of birth control. It's
just unbelievable. I mean, it's beyond pandering. I mean, it's a step too far. It's just ridiculous.
You know, I mean, I think it's a natural progression from someone just 2 weeks ago who voted for bestiality, you know, to get over on something foolish like this.
Well, what happened was Obama backtracked, which he should not have done. He backtracked and said, "Oh, well, the church institutions don't have to provide it."
He didn't backtrack. He purposely threw that junk out there to fan the flames, and then he rides in on the white horse and says, "Oh, what did he say in the speech a couple weeks ago? He was a Christian."
Right. Well, that may and
he was a Christian, and Christianity is a good thing in his
There's
eyes.
nothing in the Bible about birth control at all, anywhere. It's nowhere in the Bible.
I'm just saying it was a facade,
right. Well,
to get everybody looking at him.
Right.
And then when everybody blinked and got mad about it, he said, "Oh, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Those fools that wrote that bill, I will not allow that to happen because we got to take care of the Christians and all that."
Well, see,
so it was a joke.
But he's taken the wind now out of the sails of
Yes.
the your conservative opponents who would have said, "Oh, he's forcing the churches to," which he's not forcing anything. The employee's only going to get birth control if they want it. Right. They're not forcing them to use birth control.
Well, one of the things, it has been many years since we I say we the Republicans, we the conservative Republicans, it's been many years since we've had anybody with the I guess the intellectual ability to stay ahead of such foolish things as that. We run out in the streets in a great panic, and Hussein Obama is sitting in the White House with all of his little minions around there, and they're laughing at the Republicans.
Yeah.
Look, they did exactly what we wanted them to do. Righteous indignation. How dare you mess with people's birth control?
Well, with their religious beliefs.
And then 5 minutes later, he completely deflates them.
Right. Okay.
They shoot all their ammunition.
Right.
They look like fools.
Well, and that's what he's done, and so now they got to find something else. And so I guess Miller's logic here is Byzantine logic is that if you have a company that's self-insured and they refuse to pay, and so there's no insurance company step in the breach. They just refuse to pay, and then they'd be fined, and then those fines would be so onerous that they would somehow, if they're also helping homeless veterans, people like, he's saying poor people, then he says like homeless veterans, somehow that would interfere with them helping the homeless veterans, all, stemming from this problem with insurance covered birth control. It's a ridiculous argument, and we've got some comments here from some of the PNJ readers who have an opinion on it. But here's the thing, it's so stupid it actually insults the conservative base that I think he thinks he's pandering to.
Right.
It's actually insulting to those voters. Even
well, he's insulted to me. We have one person, folks, that commented on Facebook. He said, "It is amazing that Mr. Miller can come up with so much nonsense. Doesn't he have more substantial problems that he can criticize? Please, Mister, get out of the church. Be a politician. That's all we voted for you to be."
Yeah, really. This is the biggest thing that he's worried about is a contraception might be paid for by insurance. I mean, come on.
It's kind of
What was his position on Viagra? Do we have that?
Speaking
which they were handed out like
candy, of that, though,
which the military was handing out like candy to the Taliban, or CIA rather, to the Taliban. By the way.
Here's my U.S. House of Representative member. How in the world he gets to this, I do not know. But at the same time, folks, and look, you're gonna think I'm pulling your leg when I say this. We've got, as far as the Tallahassee's concerned, we've got insurance problems, and we've got free speech problems, and we've got prison problems, and we got this, that, and every sundry thing on it that serious problems need to be taken care of.
We have outrageous power bills.
Representative Clay Ford was so proud of himself that he made February the 14th a day to think about men's problems along the lines of Viagra.
Oh, dear.
That was his focus. Yeah. His focus. Mm-hmm. We're in the middle of a bloodbath battle over your tax dollars and privatization, and Clay Ford is happy to announce that low T, February 14th is going to be low T day, according to the Florida House of Representatives.
See, these are the problems of the 1%.
Well, here's what the problem is. Jeff Miller and Clay Ford is very the symptoms of where we're failing as a Republican Party. I don't believe in trash such as this. I think it's ridiculous. I would never do anything like that. But our core values, we, and your party's done the same thing, our core values, we wind up people that wind up getting elected into office that are in la la land.
Yeah.
They're on the fringe at best.
Yeah. This is a cartoonish take on conservative values. It's a cartoon.
I mean, here, Jeff, Congressman Miller, you know, you want to get out and beat the bushes about something. Beat the bushes about $4 trillion of debt that Deborah's president has run up. You know, if you want to beat if you want to beat the bushes, get out there and say how wrong it is on the fact that you nor the Senate has passed a budget in 120. I've been keeping track of it. I think it's 1,028 days. We haven't had a budget in the United States of America. Pick something important, Congressman Miller. Pick something that matters to some folks. And you've been in office for 8 years now. If you haven't solved the homelessness issue and veterans within your community, that ought to be a clear sign that you are an ineffectual leader and you need to go home. Yeah, actually, you just should not run and not have, just give up.
Yeah, why is any veteran homeless? Obviously, provision hasn't been made.
Miller has sat in the Congress.
He's on the Armed Services Committee.
Miller has sat in that Congress while benefits that we promised to the brave men and women who fought for this country, many of whom lost family members, lost their own lives, and left family members behind, he's been sitting there the whole time that we have pulled benefits away from them that we promised them.
Yeah.
But he's quick to wrap that flag around him and God bless America. Well, folks, if you hadn't guessed it by now, it rings hollow with me. A real American doesn't leave the homeless veteran in the weeds, especially when he's sitting inside the U.S. Congress. Don't tell me that we don't have the ability, the dollars, and the intestinal fortitude to take care of the folks that have fought and died for this country, for the rights that we have today. It rings hollow with me. It makes me ill to see Jeff Miller's name to start out with. This foolishness is ridiculous, but folks, I'm not kidding with you here. He voted to raise the debt ceiling. He voted to allow the military to come to your house and drag you out. Look, I'm not some crazed person dreaming stuff up. Jeff Miller signed off on the military coming to your house for no justifiable reason. The government, and keeping you locked up indefinitely. And he approved bestiality in the United States military. Changed the military core beliefs in that.
Well, and this very problem that he posits, which is ridiculous to begin with, it would be a result of them privatizing people taking care of veterans. Because it would be a private company that would be self-insured that all that stuff would happen to. If the veterans were taken care of by the Veterans Administration, like they should be, that wouldn't even be an issue.
Oh, and by the way, in fairness to some of the other folks that commented to this story, I commented to this story. And here's my plan. Let's get one of the homeless veterans and trade places with Congressman Miller. Instantly, we would have an infinitely more qualified person as a U.S. Congressman. And that's just about the way I feel about it. Absolute blowhard. All we hear is blah, 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 blah out of Jeff Miller. Oh, I'm carrying a flag. No action. No action. Always some stupidity. He laid down, I don't want to offend my Democratic partner here, but he laid down in the weeds with the Democrats and voted to increase the debt ceiling. And that was the absolute worst. I won't say it's the worst thing he's ever done. Not the worst thing he's ever done. CAFTA and NAFTA was the worst thing.
And the other three signed after CAFTA.
You know.
Yeah.
But quit boring us, Congressman Miller. But be an American. Be an American. I tell you what, when you start acting like an American, then you run around with the flag draped around you. Right now, you're not acting like a good American. Raise the debt ceiling. You've been up there the whole time this deficit's been run through the ceiling. All the way back to George Bush. You were right there. You were flying around in the plane with George Bush, Congressman Miller. You greeted him at the airport and flew around in the plane with him. in an explosive over and over and over deficits through infinity. How dare you wrap the flag around yourself and want to, all of a sudden you worry about the veterans because of a birth control. Give me a break.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
You're on the Armed Services Committee. You're one of the top guys. And if you don't have the mettle, the ability to get the job done and to take care of the people who have served their country proudly, then, sir, I'd kindly ask that you just check out and get on back to Shamuckla, Florida, because you're not doing them any good, and you're certainly not doing the rest of us any good.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a problem with the VA.
Well,
if we're concerned that we've had to privatize this and that's not going to work.
If a handful of birth control pills is going to be enough to teeter the balance of being able to take care of human beings,
ludicrous,
that are retired veterans from the U.S. military service, we have some serious problems here.
Yeah.
We really have some serious problems here.
Yeah.
I think it is something absolutely. Those that have served in the military, we owe them a debt of gratitude.
Certainly they shouldn't be home. I mean, there's no need for them to be homeless.
We deserve them more than hot air coming out of a congressman's mouth over foolishness such as this.
This is probably the most idiotic thing I've ever seen come for their office. It's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Count them up. How many in Congressman Miller's district, how many homeless veterans could there possibly be?
Yeah.
I know there's probably a good many.
Yeah.
But I bet the number's way smaller than you. When you start talking about a federal budget that's $4 trillion,
right?
We can't find enough money,
right?
to find these homeless veterans a job and a roof to go over their heads.
It's paying the fat retirement for high-level DOD and military generals' retirements. It's paying stuff like that. It's paying for all the little goodies that they get up there at the top levels of the DOD. That's where that money's going.
Well, I just can't imagine in Congressman Miller's district that there can't be jobs found at, the Veterans Clinic, at local colleges.
Yeah.
Pay them a little bit, find them a place to stay, work with these veterans. They risk their lives.
Well, they don't want to. They don't want to.
They risk their lives for the protection of this country.
Right.
And if we don't have any more respect for them than that, we ought to be ashamed of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'll say it again, Miller, you've been an utter failure as a congressman for your district. And you ought to be ashamed of yourself, constantly trying to wrap the flag around you that you're some great American hero. You're not. You're a failure. Let's get to something that's near and dear to my heart, folks. We've had a long battle. And in Santa Rosa County, it reared its ugly head with the GO prison that showed up out of thin air, and there's a lot of issues that we won't rehash that. But one of the goals of this corporation, the GO Corporation, and
privatize prisons
is to privatize prisons, and done a great deal of research on this, gathered a lot of stuff together, and nothing illegal about political contributions, but several $1 million has moved into the state of Florida over the last few years, and as we covered in one of our recent shows, we actually read the bill to you. And I mean, the first 3 sentences was actually absolutely ridiculous. The first sentence said you can privatize anything you want to. The second sentence said you don't have to tell anybody until you sign the contract. And the third sentence said that we're gonna waive the accountability clause that you're not required to prove efficiency or cost savings to the taxpayers.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of folks that have pushed it. Well, this is only about privatizing the 27 prisons in the south end of the state of Florida. I say bull. That bill it did not write in there, this is all we're talking about. It was going to open the floodgates to privatize everything in the state of Florida. Now, let me say this. As a conservative Republican, I do like privatization in a lot of areas. But in this one, specifically talking about the incarceration of human beings for profit. But the cost savings are quote unquote alleged cost savings is the other thing.
Well, they don't have to prove any cost savings.
Yeah, you should do whatever you want. And I want to say, it's it was a long, hard fought battle, folks. You cannot imagine where you had Herodopoulos, the Senate president, where you had Don Gates, the incoming Senate president. The pressure that was applied, I caught Herodopoulos in one interview. He said, well, if we've applied any pressure to anyone, I would like for them to walk across the floor and tell me that we've done that. Well, it's laughable. I know what kind of pressure was put on them. But let me tell you, I am very proud to say that our senator from our area, Senator Greg Evers, he told them from day one he was going to vote no. He stuck to his guns. They did everything in the world they could to him, and he still voted no. And there's several other congressmen and senators and that stood up and did the right thing. Folks, you just don't realize how dangerous this privatization bill was. I mean, that means the entirety of a $69 to a $70 billion budget in the state of Florida in time could have been rolled over to the private sector.
It's handouts. It's unaccountable, untransparent handouts.
They're already trying it. They're already trying to do away with the public school system. Mm-hmm. The next thing was going to be all the transportation issues and the roads. They want to privatize everything. And I'm here to say that everything doesn't need to be privatized. Very specifically, as I said before, I think it is immoral to incarcerate human beings for a profit.
Yeah.
And as we've discussed on here before, no other news media covered it, but in Pennsylvania, they already caught 2 judges up there that received some $2.6 million for incarcerating youth for profit. Okay, so don't tell me it won't happen here. We know it happened. It has happened here. Now, I'm going to say this. I hope that the Department of Corrections open their ears up in this. The Department of Corrections needs to make some adjustments.
Yeah.
They need to learn how to streamline. They absolutely do. But this was not the answer, and I can't say again, how proud I am of the senators that stood up and voted no. And just to give you an idea,
close.
Yeah, just to give you an idea, folks, it was deadlocked. There's 40 members of the Senate. It was deadlocked 20-20. And finally, there was movement the other way, so it was actually 21 senators voted against it. 19 senators voted for it. Herodopoulos, I got the list right here. Senator Gates voted yes.
Well, let's just remind everybody that Senator Gates was on the committee that introduced this idea.
Right. And also made a trip to Santa Rosa County to see the first private prison being built.
Yes. And was involved in at least one meeting that we know of with Team Santa Rosa.
Absolutely. Additionally, to me, and I've certainly expressed this to Senator Evers, I believe this is a turning point. Okay, folks, in Tallahassee, what you have to understand is you do what the leadership says or they torture you to death. And this is probably the first time that I know of that the members have stood up against
Some of them.
leadership.
Yeah, some of them.
And they won.
Yeah.
And I'm quite certain, look, as soon as this vote was held, your Senate president was out there saying, well, they wouldn't go along with me on this bill, and it was going to save $17 million, so we're going to cut $17 million out of health and education.
Right, sure.
Yeah, it's a typical mentality
Spiteful.
over there.
It's spiteful. Yeah.
Hateful.
Yeah.
Hateful. And
you're going to hurt kids. You're going to hurt kids because your buddies didn't get their hand out. You're going to hurt kids.
Yeah, this deal wasn't going to save any money. On paper, it would have saved money, but folks, one of the sad things about this is it never was a fair comparison. The state prisons had to keep whatever prisoners was dropped off there. The other private prisons, they got to pick and choose. At a certain medical cost, they could kick them back to the state. Very dangerous criminal, they'd kick them back to the state. So it wasn't a fair comparison to start out with. And I'll tell you, I usually spend most of my time dealing with Santa Rosa County, but this is an issue that I immersed myself in. And I sent a lot of emails, and I sent emails out thanking some senators, and I sent some other emails out telling them how wrong they were. And
it'll come back up again.
Oh there's no doubt. There's been too many contributions, too many campaign contributions paid. There's been too many deals struck. There's been too many friendships made along the way.
And it's so much easier than trying to build a real economy. It's so much easier just to take government money and find some kind of excuse that you need to have a government contract and just pay yourself whatever you want as soon as the money comes in.
You know, Deborah, the sad thing in all of this is in one of the video interviews that I watched is that Herodopoulos actually stood there and said, well, with such a huge decline in prison population, I hope that the Department of Corrections will be able to get their arms around this.
Yeah.
So the whole argument of wanting to expand private prisons and expand their breadth and control, he's standing there saying,
they don't need them anyway.
We don't need them.
Yeah.
Remember, Jeff Miller voted for bestiality. I'm Jerry Cooey.
I'm Deborah Nelson. Thanks for watching.